Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, March 21st through Sunday, March 27th. This week we are starting the week with the sun just freshly having entered Aries on Sunday. So that's exciting. That's good news generally speaking. So happy birthday Aries, happy spring equinox, and now we are in spring in the northern hemisphere. So that's generally a pretty good thing. Of course, depending on our unique charts, we experience transits differently. We may have auspicious moments at different parts of the year according to our own unique astrology. However, generally speaking, some transits are much easier than others, and Sun in Aries is generally speaking for everyone an easy and auspicious transit. And the reason being is because not only is it the beginning of spring, but the Sun is also exalted in Aries. So this is a positive time. It's an energetic time. We still have all the planets direct, so it's a great time to be active, be outgoing, to start new projects in our lives, and really just embrace our own self-awareness and self-expression, our own desires. That's kind of what Aries is all about. So pretty exciting stuff, pretty fun stuff going on. And this is also part of us leaving the fog, the proverbial fog that I've been talking about, and sometimes literally fog, depending on where you are in the world, that corresponds to this time of year. But yeah, so we've been in a fog with, Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and Neptune. We're all in Pisces for a while together. Sun and Mercury in Pisces, and then Jupiter and Neptune, which are in domicile in Pisces. So this created this really thick fog where we really couldn't see anything. So now that the Sun has entered Aries, we are partially coming out of the fog. We're able to see a little bit more clearly, a little bit more crisply, and we're more aware, generally speaking. We can see better. I keep going back to that allegory or that metaphor because it's just such a it just works so well. It's like we can plan things better. We can see farther into the future than we did previously. And by the end of this forecast, Mercury will enter Aries as well. So I think the way I see it, by the time both the Sun and then Mercury afterward, by the time both of them are in Aries, then we will be fully out of that Piscean kind of fog and dreaminess. So we'll be able to just kind of step back and go, what just happened there? Now we're kind of awake. We're waking up from this sort of dream state that we experience in Pisces. And I wanted to say too, to touch back on, some transits being easier than others. Endings are hard for us. I don't know if it's, human nature or if it's our society, but we like beginnings better. Beginnings are fun, generally speaking. Again, everyone's different, but as a whole, beginnings are fun. We like beginnings. We feel positive about those. We don't like endings. We don't like endings, even though endings are just a part of a cycle, and every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. I don't remember the name of that song, but you get my point. So Pisces is, generally speaking, I would say, a more difficult time. So it is. I don't know. It's positive. We're moving into spring, so that's good. Okay, and then lastly, before I get into the forecast, we also have a third quarter moon in Capricorn this week, so that'll kind of shake things up. It's a more kind of heavy and intense quarter moon. So we'll talk about that when we get into the forecast as well. Okay, so starting out on Monday, March 21st. Yes, okay. Let me go back 12 hours because this is right around midnight. We want to be right around noon. And this is Eastern Standard Time for anyone who cares. But, okay, so we have Mars sextiling Chiron. Mars is at 11 degrees Aquarius, you can see here. And it's making a sextile to Chiron at 11 degrees Aries. Um, and it's funny, so Venus and Mars are so close together, you can see they're about 3 degrees apart. So Venus is gradually speeding up, going ahead of Mars and kind of going on her own out there, but they're still pretty close together. So Mars is echoing all the aspects that Venus just did. So we just had Venus sextile Chiron last week. Now Mars is sextiling Chiron. So I was talking about how with Venus sextiling Chiron, it was kind of a double-edged sword. Mostly positive though. I mean, Venus is benefic. It's making a sextile, or it made a sextile last week, which is a harmonious aspect. So it could have gone kind of either way, but generally I would see it as more positive. now with Mars making this aspect, um, it's a little bit more volatile. Mars is a malefic. It brings challenges and sometimes it brings chaos and abrupt change. But it is a sextile, so this is a harmonious aspect. And then also, Chiron is receptive to Mars since Chiron is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So I guess the way I would see this is Monday, there could be a potential for, people being very outspoken, maybe in a kind of dramatic or sudden way, and a maybe authoritarian or aggressive way, speaking out about traumas that they've had or emotional wounds that they've had, emotional baggage. So people may be extra sensitive with one another and extra vocal about their own, pasts and such. So that's just something to look out for. And this is interesting too because we have the moon in Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars as well. So there's kind of a lot of action going on with Mars in general. Sun is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So Monday is a very kind of Martian day, meaning that we're kind of thinking on our toes. Is that the saying? We're more instinctive. We're kind of thinking more quickly, acting quickly. We're more confident, more outgoing, maybe a little bit more abrasive with one another. So on the positive side, we can be more kind of competitive with one another. We can have like a friendly sense of competition. Um, and then it can also be kind of sexual. I guess that could be maybe positive. But on the more negative side, we might be kind of maybe more aggressive with one another, upset one another, be offended, or that competitiveness can be, I guess, a little bit challenging as well. So Monday is, I think it's kind of fitting for a Monday though. Like Monday, you want to start start things. You're starting the week, and Monday I feel like is a little bit abrasive in its nature. So this is kind of a fitting energy. So we're, I don't know, having a rude awakening coming from the weekend, but we're also kind of jumping into our week really quickly and a little bit intensely. Um, so yeah, make make of that what you will. Also on Monday we have Mercury conjoining with Jupiter. So you can see here Mercury's traveling so fast. By noon, it will already be a degree ahead of Jupiter. But in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, Mercury passes over Jupiter. So this is interesting because Mercury and Jupiter have a lot of opposing themes or elements. So they rule signs that are opposite one another. Mercury ruling Virgo and Gemini, and then Jupiter ruling Pisces and Sagittarius. So both pairs of signs oppose one another. Both planets have to do with learning and knowledge, intelligence, and expanding the consciousness in different ways. But Mercury does so with kind of more mundane physical details and nuance, like intellectual information. Whereas Jupiter is more about wisdom and knowledge, spirituality, religion, or more abstract and metaphysical concepts, I guess. And so there is a connection between the two, that they are both centered around learning and expanding the mind and the soul, I guess you could say. So as they make this connection in Pisces, Jupiter's in domicile, Mercury's in detriment. So I think this has multiple ramifications. One would be it could be a good time to learn about something, of a spiritual nature, to question, like ask the bigger questions, and maybe kind of think or speak about philosophy or metaphysics, things of that nature, spirituality. We can maybe get more bang for our buck with when it comes to thinking, learning, speaking about these types of topics on Monday. Also, though, with Jupiter expands everything. That's one downside. Jupiter is a benefic, so it typically brings expansion and good fortune, which is generally good. But one potential downside is that it can blow things up. It can expand things. So with Mercury, which represents our thinking, conjoining Jupiter, especially in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter, it can also mean that we are not thinking objectively. So we can be thinking subjectively, and we can get kind of carried away with our thoughts or feelings, letting our feelings color our perception, being somewhat biased. Which truly we're always biased. There's no such thing as being truly objective. But I just mean that this could bring out some extremes in it, that we may not be thinking super clearly. We may not be able to, especially when it comes to like like Mercury likes things to be detailed and agreed upon. Mercury likes it when we can all come to a consensus and say, these are the facts. But Jupiter and Pisces, they these energies just don't really work that way. They're more about, what's true for you and where do you come from. So on the positive side, it can be a good time for exploring spirituality, metaphysics, philosophy. Downside, it would be hard to, with tasks that require thinking linearly, it may be hard to do that, or, analysis may be difficult. Okay, going forward to Tuesday, March 22nd. I'm still getting used to this site. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, so Tuesday, March 22nd, Moon will enter Sagittarius about midday Eastern Standard Time. And this is a much different vibe. So, on Monday, like I said, it was kind of more abrasive with, so much Mars energy, Mars ruling both the luminaries. As the moon enters Sagittarius, it's a much different vibe. So we know Sagittarius is more playful, more light. It's not nearly as kind of intense as Scorpio. But also this is strengthened by the trine that the moon is stepping into. The moon, pretty much as soon as it enters Sagittarius, it will make a trine with the sun. And this is one of the lesser talked about parts of the lunar cycle, but it's very harmonious. So there's just generally kind of good vibes. It's easy to be in a good mood. Everyone, of course, very general level, everyone kind of is in a more upbeat, kind of good mood when the moon trines the sun like this, especially in fire signs. This is actually really beautiful. Sun is exalted in Aries, so that's kind of a nice, easy energy to work with. Moon is in Sagittarius, where it's trining the sun, so we've got these two fire luminaries making this agreement with one another. They're agreeing, they're forming this strong communication, strong aspect. So that looks really beautiful to me. It looks like a really easy day to be, very expressive, very active and outgoing, since we have that fire emphasis, but in a way that's very playful and fun, and just exploring our own freedom to, express ourselves and explore our desires, etc. That's really what Aries and Sagittarius are all about, is expressing themselves, and they're both, very much focused on their desires as well. They want to have fun. They want to, partake in pleasurable activities. They could be a little bit hedonistic. They prefer they prefer pleasure they can experience immediately, rather than like working towards something that they'll get pleasure from later, generally speaking. In the moment, this is a very fun energy to experience here. We also, on Tuesday, have Mars squaring Uranus. We have lots of aspects this week in general. So Mars is at 12 degrees Aquarius. It squares Uranus at 12 degrees Taurus. Mars is such a chatterbox. It's making all these aspects here. So this is very volatile. It's hard to imagine a more volatile aspect. Now, this doesn't completely throw off the good vibes that I talked about with the moon shining the sun. That's, dominant. That's the main color. I don't know why my mind is going there, but that's the main kind of shade, if you will, of the day. But then we also get these kind of colorations of Mars squaring Uranus. So that does bring some volatility, some change, some abruptness. Both Mars and Uranus kind of correlate with sudden changes, and also volatility. So unpredictability too. And it's interesting. So Uranus is in fall and Taurus. It's debilitated. But then what's interesting is that Mars is in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. So Mars is receptive to Uranus. So Uranus, I've talked about, in Taurus means that our economy is completely changing. As a society, what we value, what the commodities are completely changing. So things that were not worth very much before may be worth much, later, and then vice versa. And let's see what else. And then it also just shows a lot of volatility in the economy as well. So we've experienced a lot of highs and lows since 2018 when Uranus entered Taurus. Um, and this too, some moments within this 8-year transit will be more volatile than others. Mars making this square to Uranus on Tuesday does mark a potentially more volatile day. And we are, as we all know, kind of in the middle of some pretty intense volatility economically. So, so I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I would say Tuesday could have potential for some major sudden changes financially for us all. And specifically with Mars in Aquarius, these changes could originate from the internet or from technology, from communications done online, which I know that applies to pretty much everything here nowadays. But there's some kind of online emphasis here. So something with technologies or the internet could also have to do with large groups of people making sudden changes. So that's kind of really interesting. I'm not sure exactly what will happen. The only thing you can really predict with an aspect like this is the unpredictability of it. So some type of unpredictable, volatile change with markets and the economy stemming from the internet, online activity, and maybe groups as well. Maybe groups of people communicating online. That may be the origin of this economic change. Okay, let's go forward to Tuesday, March 23rd. Okay, so Mercury crosses over Neptune on this day. We still have Moon going through Sagittarius. It's not making that exact trine with with the Sun in Aries anymore, but it's making the trine by sign. So we can still kind of enjoy that fun, fiery energy that started on Tuesday. Feeling more active, feeling more energetic. I'm actually pretty excited for this because um, I just am. So yeah, it just looks like a fun energy. So that's really great. We can continue to experience that on Wednesday. However, Mercury crossing over Neptune, I think marks one one kind of final intense period of fogginess. That fog I was talking about, not being able to see clearly, not being able to measure or analyze very clearly, not being able to see objectively, things being more mystical or foggy. Um, Although that is kind of gradually clearing now, with as we transition from Pisces into Aries, we do get some intense fogginess from Mercury crossing over Neptune. Even more so than Mercury crossing over Jupiter. So we get a little bit of that on Monday, but it really intensifies on Wednesday. So this is not it's not a clear transition. It's not like one day we're completely in Aries and then the next day we're completely in Pisces. The sun is in Aries. We are starting spring and all that, but with Mercury crossing over Neptune in Pisces, it shows we're getting both at the same time. We're kind of in the midst of it all. So this can be very dysfunctional and very chaotic. There can be a lot of like accidents on the road, or I talked about on Monday, people with especially on Monday, people being upset or aggressive with one another. This kind of continues, and there's a lot of confusion on Wednesday. So it's kind of up and down. Monday's volatile. Tuesday, I mean, this whole week is pretty volatile. We at least had that really strong positive trine aspect on Tuesday going into Wednesday, but now Wednesday there is the potential for um, mostly so immense potential with exploring spirituality, learning about spiritual concepts, tapping into your own intuition, your own subconscious. There's potential there. Tapping into psychic abilities. But the delusion comes from the fact that, like I've talked about recently with other aspects, when you tap into your psychic abilities, it's sometimes impossible to tell if you're truly picking up on something, if the information you're gathering is accurate, or if you are projecting. If you're projecting your own, assumptions, fears, insecurities, and, so are you truly intuiting or are you projecting? It's very difficult to tell. So that's where you get both with an aspect like this on Wednesday. You get the potential for having revelations, having immense streaks of higher consciousness awareness, spiritual awareness, especially learning about spiritual concepts. All of that potential is there. There's also potential for being crazy, for projecting, being lost in illusion, lost in the fog, things not being very clear. Um, so all in all, this is, I would say, more difficult. I kind of laid out the potential positive side, but in my personal opinion, Neptune is the hardest planet in astrology to work with, even harder than Saturn, just because with Neptune, that fogginess just obscures everything. You don't even know if there is a problem, and if there is a problem, what is it? And if you know what it is, how would you deal with it? There's so many questions, and you just can't see anything. So how are you supposed to operate? The answer to that is you're supposed to. Well, I don't want to say supposed to because you can do whatever you want. I don't want to apply judgment, but one of the potentially most functional ways to combat or adapt to this type of energy, to this aspect, would be to go with the flow. That's really all you can do with Pisces energies and also Neptune as well. And Mercury, which shows where our intellect is, where our mental focus and capacity is, being kind of submerged or obscured, eclipsed by this energy. It shows that on a mental capacity, we have to just kind of surrender. That's another keyword with Pisces. You have to just go with the flow and say, I ultimately, you know, ultimately you can kind of strengthen your intuition. That's really powerful. But at the end of the day, you can't control, anything really. You have to, and at the end of the day, you don't really know anything either. That's something I think we learn with Mercury and Pisces. We learn to have a sense of awe and wonder at the complexity of everything because we can never truly know or understand anything for absolute certain. So in short, on Wednesday with this aspect, we have to just kind of go with the flow on a mental level. And that can be difficult because we have things we have to do. We have jobs, we have to work. We have to sometimes think in a very linear way to operate in our modern lifestyle. So that is where the dysfunction and the kind of chaos can come. So I would just say to if you can limit the thinking and coordinating the analysis. Limit your thinking. That's not what I meant, but you know what I mean. Limit the all the technical detail oriented activities. If you can limit that on Wednesday, that would be good because there is a high potential for errors and mistakes. But if you do have to do a lot of technical work on Wednesday, I would say to just double check everything and be extra thorough because, there's just that potential for delusion and just general chaos as well. Okay, let's go forward to Thursday, March 24th. So no exact aspects on March 24th. Later in the day, Moon will leave Sagittarius and enter Capricorn, where it is in detriment. Excuse me. So this is a harder sign for the Moon. And the reason is, the Moon kind of rules our immediate feelings, like where we stand on a emotional level. And with the sign of Capricorn, Capricorn is not really about that. Capricorn, if anything, is kind of about putting aside your immediate needs in order to work toward the long term, work toward the future. So, the moon doesn't really like that. It's more about the here and now. It's more about, what you feel in the moment. And Capricorn also is a kind of cold, kind of stern sign as well. And Moon likes to be more sweet, more nurturing, more sensitive. So Moon is kind of out of place in Capricorn. So that is a little bit difficult for us, but it's especially difficult because, like I said, we do have a third quarter Moon in Capricorn later on Friday. So Thursday we'll already start to feel the energies of the third quarter Moon building up. I always say, because even if the aspect isn't exact yet, the aspect is there by sign. So in other words, Capricorn squares Aries by sign. So Moon being in Capricorn, it's already basically squaring the Sun. It's within range. So we're already feeling that heightened intensity, that tension, anxiety, restlessness. And this is especially true because Sun is exalted in Aries, Moon is in detriment in Capricorn. So this is really kind of Martian, Mars oriented quarter moon. Quarter moons in general are already kind of focused on action and change, but this one, especially with the sun so strong and fiery, and then the moon so weak, so debilitated, the sun almost kind of overpowers the moon here. And let's see, and then both Aries and Capricorn, even though Capricorn technically is a yin sign, it's Earth. It's ruled by Saturn, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So there's almost kind of a little bit of a yang emphasis with Capricorn as well. There's an individualistic nature to both Aries and Capricorn. So, so yeah, this is definitely not a good time for being very sensitive or soft. I guess this is more an individualistic energy, kind of hard hitting. Make no compromises, and it's favoring assertive action. So taking action, be decisive, be assertive. These kind of more like masculine and yang dominant qualities. That's what this quarter moon is bringing out. And again, that's what quarter moons are all about, anyways. Is decisiveness, action, taking action, making a change. So that's generally the focus on Thursday. So it's kind of it's interesting. It's a bit of a rough week here, but at the same time, on the other hand, like if you if you can be decisive, if you know what you want, especially like if you're the more focused on your desires you are this week, I think the more you can really thrive because as long as you know what you want and you have the gall to go out and make an attempt at least to go out and get what you want, I think this week's energies will support you. So it's interesting. So like on the one hand, we do have to be careful because there's a lot of volatility, but on the other hand, I think we are meant to be active though. I don't think you should just stay home and try to avoid all this chaos. You have to kind of get out in the game, in the ring, and make yourself known, assert yourself. That's what these energies are favoring right now. Going forward to Friday, March 25th. Very early in the day, Eastern Standard Time, we have the exact third quarter moon aspect at 4 degrees Capricorn. So I already kind of covered this a little bit since we start feeling this energy on Thursday, but it of course really ramps up when we get that exact third quarter moon aspect on Friday. So again, this is really favoring us, pushing us to be individualistic, decisive, maybe a little bit abrasive at times, being, assertive. That's what Aries and Capricorn favor is being knowing what we want and not being afraid to I don't know, to make a splash, to make some noise in order to get what we want, I guess. Let's see what else here. Moon in Capricorn square, Sun in Aries. Yeah, it's interesting. It's especially going from such Piscean energies that we're experiencing like so recently, which is such a yin energy. It's more like feminine, intuitive, and more soft or nurturing. We're swinging way the other direction into this really like bold, fiery, masculine energy. So again, it's I mean, it's different for everyone. We all have our different own charts where we may favor one energy over the other. But ultimately, we can all use some kind of gifts we have, some kind of adaptations or innate strengths to not only cope with the energies that we experience, but also thrive with them. So if you are a assertive person, you're maybe like kind of aggressive. You like to initiate. These energies will be easy for you. This is what you already do. You can pretty much just be yourself, and it'll be really easy for you. If you are maybe more timid or more shy, more receptive to other people, more focused on others than yourself at times, this energy will feel unnatural for you, and it may be uncomfortable, I would say. And I think the answer here, which is so funny, I was just saying on Wednesday to, surrender, but then now on Friday we have to do completely the opposite. You're not meant to really surrender at all. You have to make a stand for yourself, make a name for yourself, really not be afraid to show who you are, not be afraid to make a move, take action and maybe take an action that may involve some degree of risk. Like there could be a lot of calculated risks on Friday. I think that's like the theme maybe of this third quarter moon. Maybe that's what I'll call this whole um, forecast. Calculated risks, something like that. So in short, yes, Friday looks very volatile. Maybe on the one hand, stressful, chaotic, overwhelming. On the other hand, though, I think if you can just put yourself out there and not be afraid to, take action and be bold, then you can really embrace this energy here. Okay, going forward to Saturday, March 26th. So Moon is in Capricorn. It will enter Aquarius right around midnight, the night of the 26th going into the 27th. So depending on where you are, the Moon will enter Aquarius either on Saturday the 26th or Sunday the 27th. For most of us, we'll go to sleep Saturday night with the Moon in Capricorn and then wake up Sunday morning with Moon in Aquarius. Let's see here, and then also Saturday, and I'll get more into that in a second here. But also Saturday we have Mercury sextiling Pluto. So Mercury at 28 degrees Pisces, making a sextile to Pluto at 28 degrees Capricorn. And it's interesting too because right as Mercury makes that aspect, the Moon is also crossing over Pluto. It's right in that vicinity there. So I would say Saturday we're experiencing a continuation of Friday's third quarter moon, since of course the moon is still in Capricorn, so it's still kind of at odds with the sun. They don't really fit. It's not at all like this kind of beautiful energy we experienced in the middle of the week when the sun and moon were trining. It's so interesting how quickly everything changes. Everything was so beautiful, so harmonious in the middle of the week, and then at the end of the week everything's kind of at odds. So that continues with Saturday. It's continuing to be more, stressful, anxious, but at the same time, favoring the bold here. I don't know why I'm full of these colloquialisms today, but yeah, the same continues. The anxiety and the stress, the chaos of the third quarter moon of Friday will dissipate into Saturday. So we're experiencing a lot of the same themes, but not nearly as intensely as we did, or acutely as we did on Friday. So it's kind of tapering off as we get into the weekend here. But again, it's very interesting. Mercury sextiling Pluto right as Moon is crossing over Pluto. And then Mercury's in detriment and in fall in Pisces. So this seems very bittersweet to me. We have the Moon. It's a lot of detriment energies. So Mercury is, in detriment in Pisces. Like, of course, we've got Sun exalted in Aries. So the general theme, the overlaying energy or underlying energy, I guess I could say, is, exalted. So there's a lot of that joy and expansion going on. But just for a short time on Saturday, we experience a lot more, and for the latter part of the week, we experience more detriment energies. So with Moon in Capricorn, we feel kind of out of place. We feel exiled. We feel like strangers, like we don't even kind of know ourselves. We're, I don't know, outside of our bodies. We just don't feel normal. That's generally what we experience with detriment energies, and that can be, the silver lining is that it can be good to be exiled, because then you can see outside of the norm, outside of the group, outside of the status quo. You can see kind of different, really unique viewpoints and get some really rich information or experiences through doing so. So that's one kind of silver lining. But the reason why I go into this is because, Mercury's in detriment in Pisces. It's making a sextile to Pluto right as the Moon crosses over. Moon is also in detriment in Capricorn. So I think on Saturday we may... God, this is so interesting because that sextile is really harmonious aspect. So there's some kind of sweetness there. We may learn about some information that is difficult to sit with, like information that's hard on us. Mercury and Pluto are both so perceptive. They're such perceptive energies. Pluto is in a much long-term way, much more long-term compared to Pluto. But both are very focused. So they're both physically small planets. So that means they're kind of like focused in their themes. But of course, Mercury's kind of zigzagging. It's traveling super fast. Um, let's see here, and Pluto is much more thorough. But that's what they have in common is that focused nature and the intensity and that perception, the perceptiveness. So I think as Mercury sextiles Pluto, I don't know, we may uncover some truths about something larger than ourselves. So something about society, history, our government. It could especially have to do with the American government, American society, since we just had America's Pluto return only a few weeks ago. Could have something to do with that nature, or and this could also come from an intuitive place. Mercury's in Pisces, so it's in a more kind of dreamy, subjective, creative state. So this is really interesting. I don't know, we could maybe receive intuitive messages or learn something involving spirituality or metaphysics that maybe shines a light on some corruption or dark themes involving our governments or hierarchies, with Capricorn ruling hierarchies and authority figures. I think that's the best I can do. And I'm just going to summarize that one more time. So on Saturday with Mercury sextiling Pluto, there's a potential to learn from an intuitive or spiritual, capacity some dark truths about potential corruption or general darkness with our hierarchies, with our society, especially American society. I think that's the best I can kind of boil that down. It's kind of a tricky aspect. Um, yeah, and I think it's difficult, like learning learning these kind of truths, is on the one hand we of course want to know more, but on the other hand, ignorance is bliss. It can be very difficult to learn like how dark things truly are. I think a lot of people tune out because they would rather just not know. Mercury sextile Pluto, I think, really just brings this to light that, like, do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? A lot of us would prefer to be asleep. A lot of us would prefer to be awake. And I think if you're watching this, you are one of the ones that took the red pill and you'd rather choose awareness and consciousness. So you may be one of the people that are uncovering some dark truths on Saturday that are not fun by any means. And it's also not fun because you gain responsibility when you gain that awareness. What do you do with this information that you have uncovered? That's the hard thing as well. It may require action on your part, or a choice. So there may be kind of these bittersweet themes of learning, uncovering some, maybe hidden knowledge, gaining awareness, but also kind of dealing with the struggle that entails. Okay. It's so up and down this week, it's crazy. Sunday, March 27th, Mercury enters Aries. Now, I'm pretty excited about this. Mercury, I think in the Vedic system, I should go back into this and see where this comes from, but Mercury is in joy in the first house. I connect that to Aries. The first house, is of course, has parallels to Aries. So I go as far to say as Mercury is in joy in Aries. And same with all the other planets, like Venus would be in joy in Leo. But anyway, my point is, as Mercury enters Aries, this is a very pleasant, energy to experience. Same with Sun. Sun is exalted in Aries. I would say Mercury is in joy in Aries. So having them both here is not only very powerful, but it's also very enjoyable. It's really great for starting things and starting anything, whether you're starting a big project or just starting a conversation, starting, whatever it is. It just favors initiation. The energy here favors initiation, the spontaneity, creativity. Creativity in like an outgoing, spontaneous way, impulsively acting on your desires. Mercury, of course, rules the intellect, but it has a lot to do with, little decisions we make, priorities we have, thinking about details, communication, of course, as well. So in Aries, Aries is so spontaneous and impulsive that it completely satisfies the intellectual hunger that Mercury has, if that makes sense. And that we can all relate to that. We all have, Mercury in our chart somewhere. We all have an intellect and a curiosity. And so we're all satisfied to one degree or another by this kind of fastness of Aries. Now, there's different pros and cons to that fastness. I think it's like, for instance, it's not the best for building intuition. Aries is by no means the most, spiritually aware sign, I would say. However, this is really great energy for interacting with the physical plane. Aries is a very physical sign. And that's what this is all about. That's what spring is about. That's what Aries is about. We've already done the whole winter thing in the northern hemisphere, and especially Pisces. Winter and Pisces are all about kind of the dream state, the manifesting from a more subconscious level. So we did that. We're done with that. We're moving into Aries, especially now that we've got Mercury on board. So now's the time for physical expression, physical expansion, play, exploration. That's what it's all about now. And part of that is stepping out of the fog. We're finally done with the fog. You won't have to hear me talk about fog anymore. And we can see clearly, and that's part of it too that allows us to engage with the physical world so much more here. So I think that's something to be excited for. A lot of fun energies, and again, part of it with Sun and Mercury in Aries is just that spontaneity, that creativity. We can, I don't know, with the Yang energies, we can just be more active. We can speak more freely, and there's something kind of liberating about that, I think. So definitely some fun energies starting, really ramping up by Sunday with Mercury's entrance into Aries. And that's pretty much what I have. I wanted to show you though, let's see here. I wanted to show you this website here. So this is, you may be aware of this already, but this is the planets today geocentric. So it's just showing where the planets are as seen from Earth. And this is just handy because I prefer this over the other site just for kind of getting a look at where the planets are. You don't get a lot of detail from this with seeing, the degrees of the planets and aspects and such. But this is nice for just kind of seeing where the planets are. And you can see by, let's go forward here to the 27th. By the 27th, you can see that now the energy is, well, especially once Mercury enters Aries, you can see the energy is mostly clustered in Aquarius right here and Aries. So, of course, we all have our own astrology again. Aquarius and Aries may be easy or hard for you personally to experience. I don't know. But both are very, especially combined together, they're very individualistic energies. They're both very impulsive, spontaneous. And they sort of, I think, feed into each other. The impulsiveness, the spontaneity, the self-expression, the rebelliousness. All of these things are kind of brought on by combining Aries and Aquarius together. So I just wanted to show you by the end of this week here, especially getting into the end of the month now, that's where the focus is Aquarius and Aries. So I think this is something that we're not used to. We've been experiencing really heavy Capricornian energies in the beginning of this decade, and really ever since 2008 when Pluto entered Capricorn. We've had a lot of heavy yin energy, a lot of Capricorn energy, and just like, I guess that's the theme of this video, that certain transits are easier for us as a collective than others. Capricorn is challenging by nature, and I think the yin energies are more challenging for us because, again, we like being more active. We like spontaneity and impulsiveness in our society. So it's difficult for us to rest. These heavy periods are difficult for us, generally speaking. So I think this is exciting, this yang focus. We're so used to kind of heaviness to slowness, especially all the slowness that started with that huge Capricorn conjunction in 2020. A lot of slowness, a lot of delays that we've all experienced the last 2 years. So this little transit here with these clusters in Aquarius and Aries, I think is kind of a breath of fresh air. We can be more active, be more spontaneous, not have to, think in such heavy terms and can kind of get out and explore a little bit more. So I think that's something to look forward to. That's what I have for you for this week. Next week, we have Venus conjoining Saturn, and we have a super interesting new moon, more potent and interesting than any of the new moons I've seen in a long time. The reason is because the new moon will be conjunct Mercury and Chiron. So Moon, Sun, Mercury, and Chiron will all be conjunct right around 11 or 12 degrees Aries next week. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a lot of fun to unpack. And yeah, and thanks for hanging in there with me during this crazy Pisces time. I'm glad we're kind of moving out of it. I think that's, again, something to look forward to. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.